Welcome to my series based on Zentangle's Bijou Be Well, done in May 2025. Each day, Zentangle put out a video featuring one pattern, and the design was meant to be drawn in a short amount of time, so you could just take a little time for yourself and kind of get yourself centered. I encourage you to go visit their YouTube channel. I'll have the link down in the comments, and you could see how they did their designs. This series is meant to walk you through how to draw each design, and then also to give you some alternative ideas for embellishments and ways to kind of zhuzh up that pattern. This video covers poke root. For all cards in this series, I used the same tools, so you will see in every single video in this series a blue Micron 05 pen, a General's Indigo blue chalk pastel pencil, an 8B graphite pencil, two Tortillons, so one for blue, one for black, and white tiles. And of course, that's my trusty little pencil sharpener there as well. If you followed along with the Zentangle series, you will notice that they also include a white pencil and a Tortillon for that. I chose to not use those for my series because I'm using a white tile, and I find that the white chalk pastel pencil really doesn't add very much to the design. Take a moment to gather your tools, get yourself centered, make sure you're sitting comfortably in your chair. When you're ready, let's begin. We begin with a string that is seed-shaped, drawn with pencil, going corner to corner diagonally, and then you can put your pencil down and pick up your pen. Poke root is a pattern that looks like a bunch of little berries, so we're going to fill up our string shape with these little berry shapes. Starting in one corner of your string, draw a line, just a short little line. This is going to be part of the stem, and then aura that line. In other words, draw a parallel line. At the top of the line, put a little arc, and then coming up a little from the bottom of those sets of lines, you're going to draw a circle or a big orb around everything, and you're going to stop at the line. Then you're going to do this all again. In this case, I brought the stem down behind the first berry and then did everything else. And then this next one, I'm not going to bother to try to have that stem kind of poke out from beneath that first berry that I drew. And I'm going to fill up about half of my string with my little poke roots going in this direction. And I'm just going to have the stem come down and meet the ones that I drew before. And then just tuck these little berries in however they will fit. Some of them you're going to see a lot of the berry, and some of them you're only going to see a small amount of the berry kind of peeking out. But my goal here is to fill the string with these shapes and not leave a lot of white space in between them. So they're going to get piled in there pretty tightly. When I hit the halfway point, I'm going to turn my card around and do basically the same thing from the opposite direction. So we're going to have a bunch of berries that meet there in the middle, and then we'll look at how we can overlap them, and that's going to be based on how you laid out the berries coming into the middle bit. So just focus on one side at a time until you get right to the point where they're starting to touch. Okay, so I've filled up my card with as many poke roots as I feel like I can kind of do the whole thing or most of the thing. And now I'm going and looking at the open spaces that are left and figuring out how I can position a few more little partials in to fill in that space. I don't want a lot of white space. So like in this case, you can see just the very top of the poke root kind of peeking out from behind the ones that are in front of it. And I'm just turning my card this way and that way, trying to find the best way to fit things in. The next thing I'm going to do is go back to each of the little berries, and where that little arc is at the top of the stem, I'm thickening it on either side. So I'm actually doing like a tiny little like loop back into the stem and then filling in the little space, or you can just think about like just darkening that line a little bit. So that way where the stem is poking into the berry, it's really, really obvious. And then the final thing I'm going to do is fill in the interstices. The interstices are the little white spaces between the berries and also between the berries and the string lines. So any little space like that, I'm going to take the time to just fill it in with my pen and create a nice dark background for these berries to pop off of. And now you can put your pen down and either pick up your chalk pastel pencil or your graphite pencil, either will work. We're going to use this to round our berries. Each berry is going to be done differently because each berry is a little unique. The ones that are right out on top, what I tend to do is put, as you can see here, a couple thick lines of pastel or graphite down along the outside edges. And then I use my Tortillon to blend it out and then blend it inward. And my goal is to not make the whole berry either blue or gray. So I'm creating a bit of a gradient and leaving a white space for a highlight. So we have a highlight and a low light on that berry. For this type of work, I do tend to go back and forth between my pencil and my Tortillon. But if you're comfortable, you can do all one thing and then go back and do the other. For the berries that are tucked behind things, I'm actually creating a little bit of a shadow area using the graphite. So where that berry that I'm currently working on is tucked behind the one in front of it, I put some graphite or some chalk pastel there to create a bit of a shadow. So some of these berries are going to be mostly blue because they are tucked way behind everything, while others will have just some blue on it. So I have a blueberry that's rounded and has a highlight, but I haven't really created that much of a shadow. So I'm going to work my way through this entire card, doing each berry individually, thinking about how I would like that highlight to sit on the berry. You don't have to necessarily be concerned with, like, say, the light source, but it is helpful to kind of plan at least where you want your highlights and your lowlights to be, and maybe how a shadow might be cast on a berry that's more behind in the grouping. Next, I'm going to grab my graphite pencil. If you already used graphite, you may or may not want to do these steps. I'm doing two things though. I'm going to put a tiny little bit of graphite where the stem meets the berry to create a shadow, and then I'm also deepening the shadows between the berries. So basically, Where the berries are bumping up against each other, I'm putting a small amount of graphite in and then just blending it out. I'm not blending it too far onto the berries themselves, but I'm just deepening those shadows that I already started with my chalk pastel. Finally, before I put my pencil down, I'm going to take and put a little bit of graphite right along where the string line was, and then blend it out, just softening it and not letting it go either too far onto the pattern or onto the card. And the only reason why I'm doing this is it helps clean up the line if there's any places where either my graphite or my chalk pastel kind of ran over a little bit. This will just soften that out and create a nice cohesive line. And when you're done, take a moment to admire your berries and the work that you put into them. And when you're ready, grab your pen, add your chop to your design, and there you have it, poke root.